For China to realize a moderately prosperous society by 2020 and a fully modernized country by 2050, its two national goals, science and technology must transform the Chinese economy. China is increasing its commitment to science and technology and is stressing indigenous innovation. But it recognizes wisely that the country must collaborate with leading science technology countries in order to compete in the international arena. How to evaluate China's science technology innovation capacity, especially in comparison with other countries? How will it progress under the Belt and Road Initiative as China collaborates with developing countries as well as developed countries? What obstacles does China face in its collaboration strategy, such as weak protection of intellectual property rights and suboptimal structure of science in China? We get answers to be closer to China. A national ceremony held annually to honor scientists for their contributions to China's science and technology. In 2017, in addition to Chinese nationals, 5 foreign experts from 3 countries were also honored. Since this preeminent award was established in 1994, 106 foreign experts in 3 international organizations won the prize. Besides attracting international talent, China also joins intergovernmental organizations and establishes scientific and technological cooperation with other countries. China's goal is to become an innovative country by 2020, when scientific progress could contribute nearly 60% of the nation's economic growth. To achieve this goal, international cooperation cannot be marginalized. To discuss China's status and international cooperation in science and technology, we feature 3 distinct perspectives. Benjamin Netanyahu is the Prime Minister of Israel. He discusses the China-Israel Comprehensive Innovation Partnership. Professor Shwelan is Dean of the School of Public Policy and Management at Tsinghua University, and Marialza Oliveira is Director of UNESCO's Beijing office. How do you evaluate China's position today in science, technology, both basic science and applied science, relative to other countries in the world, particularly developed countries?
I think actually one of the miracles, of course people talked about China's economic growth and so on, but the other miracle comes with that is the rapid progress China's made in science and innovation space. There are several sort of indicators, of course, you can use. One is the investment in R&D. In the mid-1990s, China's R&D investment in R&D as a percentage of GDP is about 0.6. And now China is about 2.1.
And the base is getting much larger, so
exactly.
It's not really the percentage, but it's the base. So
exactly. The base is getting much larger, and so in fact, I mean, there's no question China now, in terms of spending, is the second largest spender in R&D. On PPP basis, could be approaching the U.S. purchasing power parity. And so there's a huge the investment in R&D has been increasing very rapidly over the last 20, 30 years.
As China has reformed and as this transformation has occurred, how important has been the international cooperation?
So I think actually the international collaboration has been a very vital part of that rapid development in science and technology. So in several areas. One is in terms of the academic collaborations. There are probably thousands, if not tens of thousands, of partnerships between the Chinese academic institutions and their international partners.
How important have they been in the collaboration?
I think actually they have played a very, very vital role in, first of all, in facilitating a lot of this collaboration, but also I think they've also become a major player in China's S&T development. If you look at China's scientific output, in terms of academic papers published in international journals, I think started in about 2005, China began to publish more scientific paper, English-based scientific papers in the Web of Science, internationally recognized collection citation. China published more than any other country except the U.S. So it became the second largest producer of academic papers.
Occurring in China right now was exchanges and a wave of Chinese students that have gone abroad to study, to learn, and they are returning to China and bringing with them not only this, the state-of-the-art knowledge that they acquired outside, but also the networks that they formed with other researchers, with colleagues and other institutions and so on, and that actually enriches the research community in China in an incredible way.
People worry, though, as research dollars transfer to industry away from university and research institutes, then the research becomes commercial and people are less willing to share and to cooperate.
In fact, I think in terms of on the commercial area, the international collaboration is equally developing very fast. Actually, when I first came back to China in the mid-1990s, and there was this trend, people talking about the globalization of science and technology. And one major player of that is multinationals. So they began to allocate their research centers overseas. Yeah. And it turned out China is a major destination, very significant part of the cooperation. I did the first survey of multinational R&D centers in China in 1999. At that time, that sort of autonomous R&D centers set up by multinationals, there were probably about 30 to 40. Mm-hmm. There are many other kinds, of course, but now those numbers have increased to now over 1,500.
A comprehensive, innovative partnership, unique for China. In March 2017, China and Israel announced their determination to strengthen innovative cooperation. According to a joint statement, the two countries agreed to exchanges among young scientific personnel and cooperation in joint labs, a global technology transfer center, innovation parks, and an innovative cooperation center. Mr. Prime Minister, you've come to China to commemorate the 25th anniversary of diplomatic relations and have just announced a comprehensive innovation partnership. What does that mean?
It means that China has designated Israel in a unique category of a comprehensive innovation partner. Israel is chock full of technology, unbelievable technology that affects every aspect of life. President Xi has designated China as moving towards innovation. And I think this will affect every aspect or main aspects of Chinese life: water, health, transportation, food. Just every aspect can be affected by the partnership of Israeli technology and Chinese industrial capacities.
Did you speak with the president about specific technologies?
Very much so. We spent.
Sure example.
Well, as an example, health. You can, through the computerized databases, actually tailor specific medical help for every individual. And there are other aspects of this that can better health. So here's an example of how you can live longer and be healthier for less cost. In Israel, our motto is we do more with less.
How about agriculture technologies? Agriculture is so important in China. Farmers are still about half the population, as has been the history of China, the tremendous focus on its farmers. Israel is perhaps the most advanced in the world in some areas of ag technology. Did you go into that as well?
Yes, we did. First, for agriculture, you need water. And Israel is a world leader in water technology. We recycle almost 90% of our wastewater. That is technology that we'd gladly make available to China. We've been talking about some pilot projects. That's the first thing. The second thing is food production. I'll give one example. It's dairy production, milk. Israel has the highest production of milk per cow of any country in the world. You'd think it's a Dutch cow or a French cow that in this, no. It's an Israeli cow because it's a computerized cow. Every move is computerized. And the production rates are very high, so you can produce more milk with fewer cows, which is something that I think could benefit China. We discussed all these areas. President Xi and I agreed to expedite the working of a joint Israeli-Chinese task force between NDRC and the Prime Minister's office. And I think the idea is how to get more Israeli technology into China and more Chinese investment in Israeli technology in Israel.
Recently, China signed a unique kind of agreement with the State of Israel, and they've called it a comprehensive innovative partnership. I think that's a term that's not been used for any other kind of relationship. How do you analyze that?
I think China recognizes there's a need for focus on innovation, and particularly it's related to the economic development. And China previously had looked at different examples, but I think in recent years, increasingly people recognize Israel as a really fascinating example of in terms of innovation, how innovative the country has been in not only specific technologies, but rather how Israel can cultivate that innovative culture. What sort of instruments that we use to encourage the innovation? Those are the things that fascinates Chinese policymakers and also academic researchers. So I think that my sense is that many people in China have visited Israel, try to learn about that secret ingredient.
The first group of U.S. scientists visited China in 1972. It was a time when China and the U.S. had not yet established diplomatic ties. 45 years later, scientific and technological cooperation has become a pillar in Sino-U.S. relations. Whereas the U.S. complains about China's unfair trade practices, China complains that the U.S. restricts exports of certain technologies deemed dual use by the U.S., meaning potentially military as well as civilian applications. For example, 3 of China's national supercomputer centers are identified, quote, to pose a significant risk, unquote, to U.S. national security. In analyzing China's position in international cooperation, one of China's claims is that it would be more effective, and indeed it reflects balance of trade as well, if the U.S. and the EU would have less restrictions on certain kinds of technologies which they claim could be dual use for military as well as civilian. Have you looked at this issue? How important do you think it is? What can be done in the future?
I served as the co-chair of the expert group for the U.S.-China Innovation Dialogue. Indeed, this issue was raised up. First of all, I think that those restrictions were still the legacy of the Cold War. There were different categories of countries, and there were different kinds of technology restrictions. I think that now both U.S. and China have become such well integrated in terms of economically and socially. There are so many collaborations. So first of all, I think it'd be very hard and very strange to explain to the American public and the Chinese public to say, okay, we view China as an adversary country. I think so. That's the first thing. The second thing is, of course, we fully understand. I think each country wanted to maintain its strategic, military, sort of advantage and so on. So I think as long as China is placed into along with other normal countries, basically, then it's certainly because China is not a member of the NATO. We don't want to, to kind of, to get the kind of U.S. military technology that's shared with NATO partners. We just want it to be like any other countries in the global international market. And on the dual use, I think it'd be very hard to tease out what is dual use, what is not. In many cases, actually, even the people who are in charge of this field will be hard pressed to say, which is not. On that score, I think there's a need to think about to have some sort of mindset change.
One of the impediments to international cooperation with China from, in some cases, other countries, developed countries, is a perception, exaggerated or true, that China is less sensitive to intellectual property rights.
If we look at the history, indeed, I think during the from 1949 to 79, when there was what in China was in the sort of planned economy period of time. At that time, all the scientific work was in people collaborate, and there was no individual's recognition. So basically, we work in teams, and so whatever we worked in, and that's the team's effort. So I think at that time, indeed, as you said, no matter whether it's in basic research and commercial, people do not differentiate individuals' contribution, recognize individual contribution, recognize the collective effort. So that's sort of I think in a way it's a legacy, indeed, still, having its sort of impact. But of course, I think after China's reform, clearly I think that in the academic research field and also in the commercial field, intellectual property began to be recognized as a key element in the national innovation systems.
There is a kind of a tension between those two, fields, the international cooperation in STI and intellectual property rights. But I think it's actually a productive tension, because what you need is essentially for cooperation is a set of rules for engagement that both sides, or all sides, if it's a multi-party, all sides agree on and respect and implement in order for cooperation to exist. That happens in everywhere. That's why you have contracts and networks it engages on. Actually helps drive the speed at which it formulates and forms its policy framework in intellectual property rights and in other elements, so as to strengthen its own capacity to engage globally, to be seen as a respected and respectable, partner that abides by standards and rules that everybody can agree on. I think that in IPR, the critical issue is perhaps on the implementation side, because China does engage very strongly in various areas of intellectual properties, and collaborates and is trying to reach, common understanding on those aspects. But it does have a way to go still.
One issue that surfaces in the minds of many Westerners, and that occasionally we read articles in Nature and Science, the two major international journals for broadened science, of problems of the honesty of work in China, whether it's plagiarism or senior researchers taking advantage of junior researchers, or outright fraud and
I think this is probably the same in any other part of the world, that academic institutions are competing in terms of how many international papers they publish and so on. But I think the real fact is that now I think most of the very reputable academic institutions, they place a very hard sort of emphasis on making sure that there's a very sort of well-established procedures to process those, no matter whether you publish internationally or domestically, to have a very a rigorous standards being placed to make sure that indeed I think all the faculty members are follow that.
Science and technology can hold the key to overcoming developmental challenges, including for countries involved in the Belt and Road Initiative. Since 2013, the Chinese Academy of Sciences has partnered with the Third World Academy of Sciences to nurture talent through fellowships and training programs. Over 750 students and scientific research personnel from more than 40 countries, mostly Belt and Road countries, are conducting research in areas that matter most to developing countries, such as forecasting for farming, dealing with natural disasters, and producing potable water.
How do you see the parallelism where China sits between working with the developed world in one way and then working with the developing world in the other direction?
So I actually visited some African countries, and I did see actually some of the African sort of academic or research institutions that was built by by Chinese companies, by Chinese donations. But I think previously, many years ago, I think those were very much focused on the hardware. But now I think actually in recent years, there have been more institutional exchange.
When we talk about international cooperation from China's perspective, there are really two kinds of cooperation. One in which China wants to get technologies that it's doesn't currently have, and the other is to share China's technology maybe with countries that are even less developed along the science and technology axis. Do you see those two kinds of cooperations going on, where China seeks to get from more advanced countries and then also working with other countries to transfer Chinese knowledge?
I think that China does an excellent job on both sides. It does, strongly with both, developed and developing, countries in that sense, and it helps very much that China actually straddles both worlds. We just had the Belt and Road Forum, and which is an incredible example of who can bring some, cooperation element to the table, regardless of at what level. Who can engage in exchanges that are, on trade, bonds, on connectivity, and so on.
You have said that Israel will be a supporter of President Xi's Belt and Road Initiative. What does that mean?
Well, we're eager to contribute in every field, in transportation, communication, health, any field that is of interest to China. But specifically, we also spoke about the possibility of cooperating in third countries. Why not have an Israeli-Chinese partnership in third countries, such as Africa? We discussed that too, and we agreed that our respective foreign ministries would pick up on that and begin to do it in Africa and probably elsewhere.
I really hope that this Belt and Road Initiative can actually become this, can push China, to another wave of opening up in terms of changing the institutions and systems, so that and to make sure that indeed China is, better integrated with the global world.
A Chinese green card. Foreign experts are now offered permanent residence options in China. In 2016, over 1,500 foreigners received permanent residency in China, a jump of 160% from the prior year.
As you look for enhanced international cooperation between China and other countries, what are some of the obstacles, some of the challenges?
When we talk about global science, the critical part is people's movement. We have Chinese students, faculty members, researchers going overseas, but also sometimes we need to, people to come to China to work on specific projects and so on. And that tends to be a problem. China does not have a sort of, U.S. immigrant system. And previously, we don't even have a sort of like a stable sort of resident kind of a system. So I think that has been improving now recently. There's indeed that, foreign scientists can apply for those resident cards, but still a very cumbersome process.
How has Israel developed such a world-class technological culture, and what lessons might China learn so it can develop its own indigenous innovation?
If I had to say what is the best way to learn of the Israeli experience, I would say it's to be part of it. To have Chinese investors come into Israel as they're doing, to have Chinese students come to our universities, which are a key part of our innovation process, and we're doing that. To have Israelis come here, to have a direct people-to-people link, which is more important even than what you see on on the internet. There's no substitute for this direct contact.
If you would look ahead 20, 30 years, even to mid-century, in terms of China's integration with the world in science and technology, what would be your vision?
I think let's start from the basic. I think we would sit in the laboratories with students and faculty from different parts of the world, and that's the vision that I see. So basically, Chinese scientific communities and scientific institutions are very well integrated into global communities.
Optimizing China's science and technology is a national priority, and international cooperation is essential. China learned the hard way that closing the country leads to stagnation and decline, while opening the country leads to growth and flourishing. The China-Israel Comprehensive Innovative Partnership enhances cooperation in healthcare, clean energy, agriculture, water, IT, and other areas. Moreover, China seeks to understand Israel's innovation culture and its systematic success in science-based entrepreneurship. Israeli technology coming to China and Chinese investment in Israel exemplifies the people-to-people exchanges of China's Belt and Road Initiative, President Xi's grand vision for China to facilitate world economic development. China's science needs to use such exchanges to catalyze its own transformation, encouraging disruptive innovation, privileging meritocracy over seniority, ensuring strict standards of scientific integrity, improving intellectual property rights, and allowing the market to play a decisive role. These are not minor matters in China's historic and continuing transformation. That's closer to China.